So this comic here asks a very specific question. What if the Predator, or more specifically the alien species known as the Yautja, what if they arrived on Earth, Marvel's Earth? And it leaves Spider-Man, Peter Parker, the almost infamous hero of New York, in a very peculiar situation. And to be honest, this story has the potential to be one of the greatest crossovers Marvel has released, or one of the worst, depending on how it shapes out from here. Either way though, we move over and we pick up in the heart of New York. But this isn't a day like any other, it is summertime, the sun is out, excruciatingly so. Everything and everyone is just super hot, burning, the sun is unrelenting in his sunlight. Garbage cooked on the street corners. Subway vents gassed out hot, stale air. On sidewalks, fire escape, people sweated through their clothes. The summer heat made the city more cruel, and as the heat and thermometer spiked, so did crime. As we pick up in the middle of one specific crime scene, one that will almost become a reoccurrence and isn't like any other type of usual crime or crime scene. As the comic continues on to say, robbers, assaults, murderers, those are all your usual crimes, but this one was different. This wasn't a bullet to the head or a knife to the gut, this was something new. You see, most of the time when there is a killing, it happens fast. But here, whoever did this, the person had some time and care, even artistry put into it. And as we see the result, it's almost disturbing and disgusting how these people, these bodies were mutilated and left, completely skinned alive. So yeah, it just goes to show you whatever is doing this, is not your average serial killer or a person sick in the head. But right here, just keep in mind these two figures, because one, we see a grueling older woman, a detective on the case, and the other seems to be some sort of containment agent here trying to, get everything cleaned up. As this other agent goes on to say, this building was condemned a few years ago. The neighbors say it's always been full of junkie squatters ever since. Could it be drug related, a stolen stash, or maybe even a neighborhood vigilante wanting to clean up his block? And these are some reasonable theories, but this detective here goes on to say, yeah, you're thinking logically, but skinning someone alive, in my mind anyway, defies logic. No, this wasn't a robbery, but something was stolen. Because every one of the bodies here, specific pieces are taken completely removed. A jaw, a rib, even a finger. Meaning whoever is doing this, whoever is committing these atrocities, they not only have some sort of motive, but they're taking almost trophies of their kills. The detective here even going on to name this person the Skinner, as of course referring to how the person whoever is doing this is skinning the people alive. But eventually the detective starts to put two and two together. Wait, why is this containment agent here to clean up? Why is he here investigating and talking to the neighbors, putting theories together? And just like that, when the real containment crew comes, we see that the person she was talking to this entire time, no, that wasn't one of them or even someone that was supposed to be here. And as we cut outside, we see it was Peter Parker himself, Spider-Man, on the job, doing his due diligence and trying to see what actually happened. Peter here, though, being still employed at the Daily Bugle, a reporter. So of course, naturally, he needs to get stories and the word around about what is happening in the streets of New York. And a new serial killer, even though it's nothing new for Marvel's New York with as many superpowered people, but one whose MO is skinning people. That could be decent in headline news. And as he talks with Jay Jonah to get the word around, we find out that the Daily Bugle has seen better days. They're not only on the verge of completely going out of business, but Peter himself is 5 canceled subscriptions away from losing his own job. Though in the middle of swinging to the Daily Bugle to get this information over to Jonah, his spider sense goes off and there's a robbery nearby. Criminals and people, thugs, taking this opportunity in this heat. So of course Spider-Man takes the detour and goes after them. Though what he didn't account for in their pursuit is a couple of children playing right in the street, playing in the water of an open fire hydrant trying to cool off as his car comes speeding down. Though before they were able to be pancaked and flattened on the hot streets of New York, Spider-Man is able to get them out just in time, webbing them up and pulling them aside as the van gets away. Though as we were about to find out and see, the people in this van, the criminals, would have wished they got Spider-Man instead of what's coming to them. Because as we see, and what we can safely assume, the leader of this group, this little criminal operation here, he quickly gets out knowing Spider-Man and whoever else could be hot on their trail. He goes on to take the money and say, we'll split up the cash. Then we each go our separate ways and nobody talks to anybody else for 2 weeks. And while giving these instructions to his crew, he hears nothing in response, so he turns around and sees the gruesome bodies on the floor. Meaning whoever did this, literally in seconds of him not paying attention, murdered his entire crew. This person, this entity, this rogue hunter is not only skilled, but swift, being able to take out multiple armed men in the span of a second and silently. And this leader here, he isn't anybody special, as he gets the same treatment, turning around and having his literal face, the skin pulled off of his face, pulled off his own body. Painful and gruesome stuff, but it doesn't just end there, as whoever this is, they relish in the pain and in the suffering, the hunt, as they pull out a blade stabbing the leader in the chest, finally killing him once and for all. And like I said before, this person here, this assailant, each time he does this, each time he takes someone out and ends them, he takes a little bit of a trophy. As we see them put the face of the person on their face, wearing it like a mask, and almost smiling, having a grand old time going through the streets of New York, causing murders and mayhem wherever they went. And with Spider-Man, even as he finishes helping the children and getting them safe, he follows after the criminals who went away, only to find the gruesome scene. A reoccurrence, just like earlier in the story and earlier in the video, he finds their lifeless bodies here in the same fashion. Spider-Man putting 2 and 2 together, realizing what happened at the apartment building wasn't just a one-off thing, but no, now we are dealing with a serial killer. Which of course, like I said, isn't anything new or special within New York, having all of the villains, superhumans, metahumans if you will, all across the city and doing what they do. But only a select few would do something like this. Of course, like maybe your Bullseyes or your Sabretooth, etc. And speaking of New York itself, we get a little bit more of panning shots and understanding about what is actually happening in the city. As of course, New York right now, it's summer. It's going through a pretty drastic and incredible heat wave. The heat here almost being like a living thing, a predator that you had to fight to survive. Every AC unit in the city was cranked to the limit. Every fan was blasted on high. And this is bad because the power grid could only take so much. Because as you see Peter here at the Daily Bugle going over the story with J. Jonah, trying to get it published and work out the kinks, suddenly the power goes off. But no, not just the power in the Daily Bugle specifically, but the entire city. Which is already horrible news when you have a heat wave like this. Now you have no working AC or no working cooling. And even worse when you have a rampaging monster or hunter or serial killer going around. And even down below within the subways of New York here, yeah, they aren't safe or special either. As on the subway ride, we pick up with a new cast of characters, one in particular being MJ herself, Mary Jane, who while just reading a book, minding her own business, going down the subway as she's done thousands of times, suddenly the power goes off and the train stops, making everybody on board panic and scream for help, not knowing what's going on, thinking they're going to be trapped in the middle of the subway in a train and just there to fend for themselves. Though MJ, being with Peter or just in the superhero community, or adjacent to it if you will, she has been in more than her own fair share of dangerous situations, so of course she isn't one to immediately panic and get frightened by just a little bit of the dark. She even goes on to help some of the locals here also, fight their fears. One woman in particular being very claustrophobic, not only that, but the heat in the dark, it's just too much. Though these circumstances here are about to be nothing compared to what is coming, as because while she is here trying to calm her down, suddenly the other woman sees something moving outside of the train window. Maybe it's a worker, maybe it's someone trying to fix the transit or the tracks and get them out of there, but the people on the subway aren't going to be that lucky. As we see, it's the rogue predator here itself, wearing the human skin like a mask, like a trophy of the other people it has killed so far. Of course, now this being a situation that MJ, could rightfully be frightened of and a little bit worried about being inside of. Though back with Peter, he is none the wiser about what is happening underneath New York in the subway or with Mary Jane, as he is still dealing with the Bugle and the power outages and stuff. Peter even realizing that the people of New York need to know what's going on, need to know that there's a serial killer on the loose, and to stay safe, they decide to go a little bit old school with the power down and them not having access to put out articles. The Daily Bugle goes back to their basics and printing out physical newspapers, which yes, in this day and age is kind of crazy, who is actually buying newspapers? But in a situation like this, it actually goes on to save many people's lives. And as we cut over a few hours later, we see just that. The people of New York handing out and giving around the papers, letting everybody be informed about what is happening in the city, even in this devastating power outage, heat wave, whatever. Because over the next few hours, as it grew as hot inside as it is outside, people did what they could to stay cool and pass time. And nobody here, the citizens of New York, the innocent people, nobody would have known they were being hunted if not for Peter. Though this is a kind of good and bad situation. Yes, Peter is the one who wrote and started the article, so his name is plastered all over it. And it's good because people are in the know. They know to be safe and not to go down dark alleyways by themselves with a hunter on the loose. But at the same time, it's bad because if anybody wants to trace who put this info out and how did they get this information in the first place, they can now directly tie it back to Peter Parker. And we see just that with a detective from the beginning snatching one of the newspapers J. Jonah was trying to sell in the streets and goes to read it herself. Seeing that this information, which was classified in her investigation, is now just plastered everywhere and was taken and was given by one man, Peter Parker. But this is bad because apparently in New York there's a new law about disseminating, spreading the photos of a crime scene without the permission of the victims or the police, which I guess kind of makes sense, but at the same time, if this information goes on to help others, them, the people of New York, stay safe in this almost trying and devastating times, yeah, you can't really fault Peter Parker for wanting the betterment of more people and not have them being skinned alive like some of the others. Though this detective, this woman, this enforcer goes on to say, I want you, J. Jonah, to bring in Peter Parker for questioning now, or I'll arrest you. And just like that up above, we see Spider-Man just swing by, completely just passing that interaction. The man she is looking for, Peter Parker, right here, except, he is the amazing Spider-Man swinging off. And Peter has good reason to swing off and not care and to get to his destination safely, as because he's going back home, going back to MJ, to try and warn her or just keep her in the know about everything that's going on within the city, as Peter should and would. Mary Jane being the love of his life, she is like top priority to being safe. As he goes into the apartment, calling out to MJ, trying to say that he thinks he has a long night ahead of him, but he just wanted to check in. Though of course as he gets there, he sees no one is home, because unfortunately MJ never made it home. She was still in the subway where that creature attacked, as we see potentially Mary Jane herself caught in the crossfires. Now, if you're a villain or bad guy and you're going against Spider-Man, and you're not like some Thor level bad guy or like Thanos or whatever, just completely overpowering him, if there's one thing you don't want to do, and you can even ask Kingpin this, and we saw what happened with that when he tried to attack Aunt May, you don't want to endanger the lives of people who Peter care about. Because Peter Parker isn't like Batman, he isn't so adverse to killing that he would rather die himself than take another life. Sure, Peter will absolutely hate to do that, but if it is the last resort, if that means protecting the people he loves, in this case Mary Jane, and against a complete psycho and predator, a monster like this predator is here now, Peter would have less qualms about going into a blind rage and potentially killing this killer. And speaking of this killer, we move back onto the streets of New York with one of the Daily Bugle's employees trying to sell newspapers, going on to say that there's a predator on the loose and don't be among the hunted. Come read all about it and be safe. Though unfortunately and unknowingly, he himself is about to be in a lot of danger, as because a couple of thugs saw him selling newspapers and know he has more cash on him. So of course they go up to threaten the older gentleman, and in that same vein, suddenly one is shot with an arrow, as another figure, a blur in the night, comes swooping by. And surely this is another hero of New York, one of the many overpopulated superheroes and superpowered people coming to save the day and save this guy. Though we see that isn't really the case here, and unless this is like the Punisher or some other violent anti-hero, we can safely assume that this isn't like Daredevil or anything, as one of the thugs here, the people with the gun, gets shot and killed in the head by an arrow. As this person towering over the older man goes on to say, you shouldn't be out here, especially since you're not strong enough. The city could be a dangerous place, especially in the dark. With this person talking, this man being none other than Kraven the Hunter himself. As he continues saying, but before you run back home to your little nest, and believe me, you should run, what was it you were saying about this predator? So yes, we find out that Kraven, the great hunter himself, has his senses and now motive on the other great hunter now prowling the streets of New York, the Predator. And this is really, really cool because when I first heard this story, I was thinking, wait, a Predator versus Spider-Man. Shouldn't Spider-Man just, like obliterate a Predator? They have trouble with normal humans and normal non-superpowered beings. And in my mind, I was thinking, wait, this would be a great story for Kraven to be against the Predator instead. And as it turns out, I was kind of right, as that's what we're going to get here, which is pretty cool. Okay, so what this does from here on out, we follow 3 distinct storylines with 3 different people. One following, of course, Spider-Man, Peter Parker, the other following Mary Jane, and lastly, Kraven of all people. Yes, Kraven the Hunter. All under New York City during this complete power blackout or outage. As the comic even goes on to say, 8.5 million people live within New York City, and they are all out of power on what is turning out to be the hottest night of the entire year. All across the city, utility workers are scrambling to repair and get the grid back online, but they don't know truly what they're up against. No, not the kind of darkness that's really against them. As we see one man in particular, a service worker trying to go into the sewers to fix a broken power line. While he is down there, he hears someone screaming for help. So of course, him being the brave man that he is, goes on to investigate, see who he can help and save. Though very unfortunately for him, this is going to be the worst mistake of his life, as once he arrives at the train car door, opening it up, just a pool of blood just rushes out. blood from bodies strung up on the ceiling from men, women, and children, all murdered, skinned alive as blood pools and drips down. Finally turning around to the source of the voice, whatever this creature is that was screaming and screeching for help, we see that it was nothing more than a diversion, a lure for anyone coming here. And for this guy, he walked right into the predator's hand. As of course, he is brutally murdered in cold blood, but at the very least, his sacrifice was served as a distraction for Mary Jane and this random woman she is helping here get to safety. Of course, all of this happening down below in the subways of New York. Up above though, back with Peter, he has a very long night ahead of him because not only is he trying to deal with the fallout of the power outage, but also this mass murderer, as in the predator, running around murdering people and doing whatever. Peter even being the first one to break the story out to the public of this new serial killer going around. So of course, the police show up at his door. One detective who was on the case wanting to question Parker about his findings and how did he even get access to this information that she was supposed to be over. Though of course this is the worst time as he's still in the Spider-Man costume and has no real time or space to change back into normal Peter Parker. All of Peter's actions and all of this of course being very suspicious to the detective here. Because originally it was her crime scene in her case that Parker snuck into and took pictures of and published to the Daily Bugle. But now this detective LaPerrill, she is now questioning and hypothesizing maybe it was Peter Parker who was the one who killed those people, who is a serial killer, which at the same time, even if it was, why would he do the murders then publicize it and make it known? Which I guess isn't the most unheard of thing, as she even goes on to say that sickos love attention. Of course, we know that isn't the case. I mean, Peter isn't this mass murderer. He is, of course, just Spider-Man. He still has zero time for her and eventually is able to escape as she kicks his door down, still leaving Parker as suspect number one. Because like I said, Peter has a very long night ahead of him and so many loose threads and plot points that he has to pick up on and see through, ranging from the killer on the loose to now the police and the cops after him. Also the fact that MJ seemingly has gone missing, with the temperatures in New York being in the triple digits and citywide power outage. I say all of that to say that Peter's spider sense, you know, his trump card in a lot of situations, it's constantly on edge. It's making his brain feel like a hot itch. All of this stuff going around, he just can't pinpoint any one singular threat because the entire city at this point in time feels alive with the danger from above and below. But for now, Spider-Man needs answers and he pushes the MJ problem through the back of his brain, just trusting that she could handle herself in whatever she's doing or where she is. Because someone is out there hunting people, killing them. Whoever this hunter is, this killer, he takes trophies, the skin of people, their fingers, toes, skulls, eyes, and ears. Meaning if he wants any type of answers with the internet down, he needs to pick up a good old-fashioned book. Though we see that Peter isn't the only one hunting for answers, as we see another hunter in the form of Kraven himself, now also on the trail. Why? Well, he even goes on to say that recently he has been bored, very, very much so. But now whoever this is, whoever this hunter is on a prowl, is worthy of Kraven the Hunter getting his full attention. Because they don't care about money or fame or power, they just care about flesh, blood, and bone. But a very cool thing I like to see is from one hunter to another, of course the Predator being a very capable hunter on his own, and Kraven the Hunter being, well, Kraven the Hunter, we see Kraven put the pieces together from a hunter's perspective. With him going on to think and hypothesize from all the pieces that this predator collects and takes from the bodies, they're like trophies, meaning he has some sort of den or hideout place, someplace to store and display all of these things and puzzle pieces that he's able to put together. But the thing that interests Kraven the most is, sure, you could take a trophy from a part of a prey, like a rhino's horn, but if you're able to make a trophy of a trophy hunter of another predator, that just puts it a level above. But there's just one problem, one wrench thrown into this whole situation, that Spider-Man is also on the trail, as he has been here at the specific crime scene where these bodies are, and even laid a web trap for if the Predator came back. Though the Predator isn't one to come back to an already defiled scene. Instead here, it's just Kraven and now the same detective, the cop from before, who's also following the trail of bodies. But now, of course, just finding Kraven instead. So obviously, Kraven needs to be brought in and arrested at some point, though the murders here weren't from his own doings. So, of course, Kraven just says, you know, leave while you can. I have no quarrels with you. The detective, though, eventually going to try to arrest Kraven, leading to a little bit of a scuffle where she gets instantly overpowered and defeated. Kraven even going on to say that, yeah, sure, while you're brave, you're also stupid, and bravery and stupidity will get you killed on a night like this. So he webs her up using Spider-Man's traps and goes about his way. Because for right now, this is more layered than just some average hunt. No, it's a race. Whoever can get to the prize first claims it. The prize, of course, being the Predator and taking him down once and for all. And speaking of the Predator, we move back underground where we saw MJ, trying to escape from this whole situation, with her leading this woman deeper down into the subways of New York until she eventually bumps into and meets what looks to be some sort of homeless man or man dwelling down there. But it seems like this man has been here for a little while as he has some more information about this Predator and actually found his den where he keeps all of his trophies and where he comes to, I guess, sleep and recover after, the killings and different hunts that he has been on. Us seeing his, almost throne of bones and bodies and blood all around them, young, old, weak, strong, every gender, every ethnicity. The only thing that the victims had in common is that they are now dead. But no, this isn't just some sort of trophy room of a hunter who takes pride in his work. It's a blabbering, slobbering mess of chaos, a collection of cruel madness. It makes no sense. This Predator here, he has no honor. He is insane, killing without rhyme or reason, just for the fun of it, the thrill of it. And as we will soon see in a second, this revelation of this rogue Predator doesn't go unnoticed by some of his other peers. And the entire reason why this homeless man brought them here is because sometimes it's safer down here in his throne, the one place he is not going to be once he's out hunting, than it is anywhere else in New York City at this point. But while they are here, suddenly they hear the same kind of help trap or help squeal that Predator was using to lure its victims forward, which is kind of scary and creepy when you think about it. He's using the phrase that some of the other humans have been using, the last thing that they say before they are, of course, murdered and skinned alive by the Predator. Help, or someone help me. But for now, they know he's near and know he is coming, so they try to hide. The homeless man leading him down more dark and ominous tunnels until leading him down to a shaft and room full of just rats and other mice and other creatures, which is pretty disgusting as he shoves them in head first to be fully overrun and fully trampled over by all of these other creatures. Which sure, at first is kind of disgusting and nasty and seems like he betrayed them almost, but this one very act saved their very lives, as eventually this now rogue Predator finally makes his appearance and instantly kills the other men who didn't have the same fortune to be able to get and hide in time, because the rats in their body heat, their noise, were hiding the ones of Mary Jane and the other woman. Back over with Peter, we see him bringing up the new information he has found during his research to J. Jonah, as because, he can publish his stuff and get the word out about what they're truly up against, as he goes on to say that whatever this is, whatever is happening, this has been going on for a very long time. In times of wars, in times of plagues, and in times of drought. Whenever things will get hot, dangerously hot. From the symbols to the very styles of the killings that has been consistent, they've been going on for hundreds of years all across the globe. But before he can go any further about what he has found, suddenly his spider sense starts to go off. Looking out of the window of the Daily Bugle, sensing something is off and sensing that they're being watched. As up above, even unbeknowingly to Peter, we see exactly that, more predators arriving on their ship. But no, this new group of intruders or predators into this story here, they aren't specifically out for Peter or to capture him, no, but they're here for the rogue Predator. They are here for the one who hunts without honor, going in to take in one of their own, basically being ashamed of him coming to Earth and doing against what is their tradition. Though, as I said, they aren't here necessarily for Parker in general, but Peter Parker was the one who publicized and got the photo of the crime scene, meaning he was the only one so far with real information about where this Predator, this rogue one, could be, or at least in the eyes of the other predators here. So of course they go to introduce themselves, barging through the window of the Daily Bugle as the power comes on conveniently, and goes to confront not only Parker but all the evidence that he has been building about the predators in general. In all the confusion though, he is able to slip away from J. Jonah and eventually get into costume, stripping down and getting into battle mode. But the reason why these other predators are here now are twofold. Because on one hand, yes, they're here for Peter, but secondly, they are here in following the trail that Peter left behind on the rogue predator, the one that we've been following this entire time. The one that the Daily Bugle and other people have come to know as Skinner. Because Skinner is a yautja, the alien species that they are, not a part of any sort of clan or code. He is someone who disgraces all of the other predators. And so because of that, they have came to Earth to hunt him down and probably even kill him for his dishonorment of their people. Which is a pretty straightforward plan until Spider-Man interjects himself into the mix and starting a battle, a 1v3, in which Spider-Man actually holds his own, which is impressive not only because, these are trained warriors, trained hunters who will kill you at any inconvenience, but also because the Predators throughout the Marvel Universe and DC Universe has also fought many different heroes, such as Batman, Wolverine, Black Panther, etc. But again, while this is happening with Spider-Man here, we move over and see what's happening with Kraven. As on some random rooftop, some engineers are getting the power starting again, or at the very least trying to, until Kraven sabotages sabotages and shoots it, stopping their progress, because in his own words, if news gets out about what's actually happening here, then the Avengers will show up, and Kraven wants this hunt, this challenge all to himself. Kraven even goes to use that great hunter mind of his once more to put together a little bit of a hypothesis, as he goes on to say, New York is a city of eyes and windows and cameras everywhere, and so if the Predator, or this rogue hunter here, has killed all throughout the boroughs of New York and has yet to be recorded or even fully seen, then that only really leaves one true answer, that it's traveling and hiding below the city and not above, like a hungry spider scrambling through the city's basement. And so Kraven does just that, going below to finally confront and maybe even kill this rogue predator, this Skinner, before anyone else even has a chance to. And speaking of fighting alien predators, we move back with Spider-Man, who is doing exactly just that, except he here is fighting against a little squad of them instead of just one. But it turns out the predators haven't been going full force so far. They've been treating Spider-Man as an interesting distraction from their main mission. That's because they love the hunt, they love the battle, so they're not going to end it as fast as they can until Spider-Man eventually gets on their bad side and takes them off. Even going as far as to web one of the predators' helmets off, just seeing his disgusting alien face and stretched mouth. Yeah, Peter says on second thought, you can have it back and put it back on. Eventually being able to web and incapacitate two of the other predators here, putting two of them down and only leaving one, as just in the last one that was still standing aims his weapons at Peter, blowing up the room in the Daily Bugle that they were fighting in. All while from down below, J. Jonah looks up, seeing the explosion and almost getting crushed by some of the debris until he is saved by the same detective from before, who was of course still on Peter's trail, coming to the Daily Bugle, the place where he works, and published a story that she was on, being at the right place in the right time just enough to save Mr. Jameson here. Though what's about to happen, what's about to show up, is going to be something that is a little above her pay grade and her abilities, as when the explosion just took place, something fell out of the office and down below, that something being a being very dangerous and very alien in nature. Yes, one of the predators, the Yautjas here, seemingly about to kill not only J. Jonah, but the detective on the case, adding just another problem and wrench into this entire story and entire situation going forward. Mary Jane and another civilian who she is helping barely manages to escape from the sewers where the Predator, the rogue one, otherwise known as the Skinner, but underground where he had his lair. But it seems like they just aren't fast enough, as this predator is right behind them, not just following them, but mocking his other victims and other humans that he has murdered in cold blood, even mimicking their own speech. The comic even going on to say that this Yautja delights in the skins of its prey. It does not hunt for honor, it hunts for fear. Having Mary Jane and the other civilian woman right within arm's reach, getting ready to add them onto his long list of victims and people who have died by his hand. Or that would have been the case if there wasn't a giant explosion behind them, in which this isn't just any explosion, this is one caused by weapons of his people. Because the Skinner is an outlier among his people, despised and targeted. He knows how to protect himself, and because of such, he can smell the plasma burner of another ship, a predator ship nearby. So of course he forgets all about Mary Jane, his current victim, running off to the trail of his people so he can take them out before they take him out. But like I said, New York is a full hunting ground now, because just out of the same sewers, Kraven appears, him equally on the trail of the predator. Because for someone like Kraven, he would jump at a moment's notice to fight a renowned predator not of this world, an alien, and an accomplished one at that. And at this point, after their ship landed, New York is pretty much swarming with a bunch of different predators. A full squad has now invaded, one even being knocked out of the building after fighting Spider-Man and landing right in front of J. Jonah and the other officer here who was on the investigation leading the murders this entire time. They barely even have a few seconds to process the otherworldly creature attacking them. And honestly, in a moment that really speaks volumes to his character, J. Jonah Jameson, even being faced with this monstrosity, this killer alien, just charges for it anyway. Sure, he might not be a true match for it in any stretch of the imagination, with him even going on to say, pick on someone slightly smaller than your own size. His courage and bravery just shows regardless as he charges and is thrown aside. Which kind of makes sense, one of his models and heroes is literally Captain America. J. Jonah doesn't really have a problem with superheroes in general, just Spider-Man in particular, because he hides himself, his identity, who he is, what his true intentions are, unlike someone like Captain America, who is pretty public with his identity and his morals. But before that predator can harm J. Jonah and the other woman there, suddenly he is stabbed and killed from behind, taken out by one of his own, the Skinner, who has no particular side in all of this. He just wants the chaos and murders to keep on coming, whether it's humans or his own species. And oh yeah, that building that's on fire and has been blowing up this entire time? Yeah, well, Spider-Man himself is still in there fighting multiple predators at this point. Now, of course, they weren't here for him originally, they have no real problems with Spider-Man, but he is enough of a threat and, frankly, an annoyance that they aren't just going to move on until he is fully taken care of, his head on a pike. But Spider-Man being Spider-Man is very hard to truly take down and beat in a one-on-one and in an enclosed space. But eventually he is blindsided and shot by the plasma cannon and knocked out of the Daily Bugle. Over with Kraven the Hunter though, we see him stalk above the Daily Bugle, finding the Predator ship that they all arrived on. But not just him. It seems like the other Predator, the main focal point of this entire series, Skinner, he has had the same idea. He knows his best chance of survival isn't a full-on attack and assault on the other Yautja or Predators here, it's to return to the shadows and play stealthily. If he is able to destroy their ship, they will be trapped here in New York on this planet that they know nothing of, but he knows oh so well. He is so focused on this goal to get it done quickly, he fails to realize that there is another great hunter stalking him, Kraven the Hunter, as he lunges down, stabbing the alien in the chest, starting their own great and pretty bloody battle. Because Kraven's intentions here and goal is pretty simple. You know, he has hunted every predator on the face of the planet. And so now he turns his attentions to the stars. As we see the two just go at it, trading blow for blow, using their blades and weapons to cut each other apart. Blood just spewing everywhere, whether it's red human blood or the green predator blood. It's a battle of will, survival, combat prowess, until eventually there is one winner. Kraven the Hunter stands victorious, holding the entire head of the predator, the Skinner, as he was known to be, completely beheaded. Which is all fine and dandy, one problem completely taken care of, yet that still leaves an even bigger problem in the wake of his death. You see, anytime a predator dies on duty or while hunting, their armor and tech is automatically set to self-destruct, just so you know that same advanced technology and their knowledge doesn't get into the wrong hands of whatever species killed them. Though, said technology is so powerful that if this bomb were to go off and explode, it would take out half of the entire city of New York. Thankfully, or unthankfully, depending on how you look at it, Spider-Man finally arrives. But you know, not in the best of shape. He has a few broken ribs, his left ear won't stop ringing, but he did survive the plasma blaster, and his spider sense going off to this explosion that could rock half the city, it brought him to the roof of the Daily Bugle. Of course, Spider-Man is intelligent enough to put two and two together. That beeping that's coming from his wrist, yeah, it's a bomb getting ready to go off. And currently they only have a few meager seconds until they are all blown up to smithereens. So Spider-Man now being pushed into a corner, he does the only thing he knows how, the sacrifice play. Because under normal circumstances, Spider-Man and Kraven are mortal enemies. But currently, no, these are very not normal circumstances. So Spider-Man webs the bomb up and swings off to put enough distance between the explosion and New York or civilians as possible. Swinging as fast and far as he can, even as Mary Jane and the other civilians down below watch and just call out. And of course, him being so far up, he doesn't hear her, he is focused. But the thought of Mary Jane is always with him. So sure, he would sacrifice himself for the city any day of the week, but he would die 1,000,000 times over for her. In which that's exactly what it seems like. Spider-Man swinging off through the nearest body of water, letting go just in time as the bomb starts to go off. Though unfortunately, it seems like he didn't get out in time as he is caught in the enormous and gigantic explosion that follows. The detonation is so big that Kraven is still blinded by the light, an explosion half a city away. Him even going on to say that, I always imagined my blade would be the thing to end Spider-Man, but that was a worthy death. Though it seems Spider-Man's death isn't going to be the only thing happening tonight, as Justin, he is attacked by more predators coming to their ship. Them seeing the blood of their fellow predator covering Kraven isn't exactly, you know, the most fitting look for them to stumble across. Because eventually, now this is Kraven's fight to lose. He's just too hurt, too damaged, you know, he barely took out the other predator. So fighting another one that is at 100% strength doesn't end well for him, as he is grabbed by the neck and getting ready to be impaled and killed. Kraven himself, though, isn't really bothered by this fact, saying that if I'm going to die, then let me die like this, at the hands of another great hunter. But the Yautjas or predators have a very specific type of culture. Because if an alien species killed a human, you know, another human might want to avenge their fellow man. Here though, it's the opposite. Because Kraven was able to kill and take out a predator solo, instead they now recognize him as a great hunter all on his own, deciding to now embrace him into their own ways. So instead of just impaling him and killing him, Predator here does something very unusual, taking his weapon and instead carving something into Kraven's forehead. The mark on his forehead is the same one that was left at crime scenes before, that spanned the entire globe in other centuries prior. No, Kraven hasn't just been spared, but he has now been branded as the ultimate killer, a bloodied warrior, someone worthy enough to not just live after encountering a predator, but even join them on their escapades across presumably the galaxy, which honestly would be a pretty cool twist of events for Kraven as a character. Eventually besting all of the challenges on Earth, he then turns his attention to the wider Marvel universe at large, going from different planets and different civilizations, hunting the best, getting more gear, armor, leveling up. In my opinion, that would make for a pretty cool story, and one that we might even get to see later on. But over with MJ, we see her running and crying, going to the last site where she's seen Spider-Man swing off and get caught in the ginormous explosion. But if there's one thing consistent with Spider-Man, is that he is nothing but resilient. As we see, he's not only very much alive, but here to meet and greet MJ in the flesh. But even as they are here hand in hand, they look up and see the Predator ship leaving Earth's atmosphere with Kraven on board. MJ going on to say that they're gone and thinking that they are safe. Peter, on the other hand, and rightfully so, doesn't believe that one bit. But MJ just decides, let's save that problem for another day and let's make the most of right here and right now. Speaking of right now though, we move back once more across the city and see what J. Jonah and the other cop detective lady are doing after getting so close to being skewered by one of the predators. That same predator who was stabbed is still alive. He didn't fully die, but he's bleeding out and dying. Though before they can get close and probably even finish the job, take him out and put him out of his misery, suddenly they are stopped by the introduction of a new team, a new task force. From a man leading them, a scientist almost, who oddly kind of looks like Dr. Hugo Strange from DC, but he introduces himself as Dr. Abraham Cornelius, coming to scoop the body up of the Predator to do whatever they want to do with it. And the reason why this is so important and groundbreaking is because this comic leads directly into Predator versus the Marvel Universe, meaning now that the humans and whatever government or private organization that they are part of have a Predator in the flesh and his tech and armor, they could potentially come up with countermeasures when inevitably the Predators come back to Earth to start killing everyone. But yeah, that was the entire Predator versus Spider-Man series. I for one thought it was pretty interesting, though it was weird that, Spider-Man didn't really get a true one-on-one or encounter with the Skinner, the rogue Predator that the entire thing was setting up. Of course, instead it went over to Kraven, which made for a more interesting story, him killing it and being embraced by the other Predators, even taken to outer space. But if you have enjoyed, leave a like or subscribe if you're new and want to see more content just like this. As always, this was AJ here at The Hero Informer, and thank you for watching.